Hey, it's Soul, and here is another episode of Warcraft Weekly, the show that's fighting to be the king of your second screen, or the space between browser tabs, whatever works. Let's get right to the news, starting by pointing out the very substantial changes and additions coming in patch 9.1.5, just announced yesterday. It came at us like a freaking hammer, with tweets and posts and wowheads and reactions. Without patch notes or a playable build, I can only say so much, so I'm gonna just kind of quick fire all the big bullet points with some reactions. So strap in and let's get moderately excited. Real quick on Burning Crusade Classic Season 2 is going to start September 15th. Woo! Meanwhile, it looks like they're going to work on a classic fresh kind of realm, but we have very little details on that. We're just gonna have to wait until a little bit later. So moving on to Shadowlands, where arguably the bigger updates are taking place, we finally get a skip to the initial Maw introduction. Finally! I'd love to see the water cooler blog dev thing where they explain why it couldn't be a thing before now. Conduit energy is also going away. It's just straight up gone. You can swap conduits as much as you like, wherever. It doesn't even seem like you need to return to the table anymore. The Covenant campaign skip is coming in 9.1.5, and it's pretty much exactly as I called it, where you complete the campaign once, and it means you can skip it on all of your alts. You also get the renown that you would get from completing this campaign, along with, of course, unlocking the soul binds. Covenant switching will be able to be done freely and without restrictions. You just need to be at max renown one time, and this entire feature will be available account-wide. Renown 80 should be obtainable the week of October 20th, which is less than 2 months from this recording. Based on prior history, 9.1.5 can potentially arrive at the same time, but given the current release schedule of Shadowlands, I think it's safer to say that it's gonna come a little bit later than that. Speaking of alts, it looks like the bonus objectives in the Shadowlands zones, not those really big zone-wide objective things, but the smaller ones, will also award renown to help speed things along on top of the campaign skips. So while there isn't necessarily a renown skip, the team is addressing the important bits that a renown skip would entail, and there's less of the same work happening. Adding to this, it looks like people will be able to level up in Torghast. How exactly that's going to work though, I'm not really sure. Questions include what happens if you're in a group with different level players, or can you technically start doing layer 12s on a level 50 character since those unlocks are account wide, that sort of thing. I'm still excited to see this go in so I can finally level my monk in an environment where he feels kind of comfortable. You might be wondering, wait, he has a monk? Well, technically, yes. Legion Time Walking is coming, and while there is not going to be a Time Walking raid so far, it does look like we're going to get Mythic Plus instead. Details are pretty scarce, other than that Mythic Plus Time Walking is going to be around for 2 weeks instead of the usual one when this event first happens. This makes me presume that under the Season 2 Mythic Plus rules, running a plus 15 in a Legion Mythic Plus Time Walking thing can get you an item level 236 piece of gear from the chest at the end of that run, which includes trinkets. It would be pretty awesome to get those kinds of trinkets at a higher item level, but it would be hilarious to get an item level 236 relic. This also means that during these time walking periods is an opportunity to push your key pretty high if the tuning is forgiving enough. Now, again, this is assuming that I know what's going on with time walking and Mythic Plus. Now, I also gotta wonder what sorts of affixes will we see, like time walking affixes or Shadowlands affixes. We also heard about soloing island expeditions, which is great, with some clarification that this includes both normal, heroic, and mythic difficulties. The mall will be easier to travel around in with teleporters to take us to the raid instance, thank you, and finally, PvP gear is expected to ramp up a little bit better. Low rank PvP gear will have a higher item level than it is now to make newer folks that get in get 2 shots instead of just 1 shot. Meanwhile, high level PvP gear is not going to be changed. You can turn in anima in Korthia after completing a short quest line, very useful for those of you who aren't engineers and can just zip around the Shadowlands with ease. Legacy loot in Battle for Azeroth is going to come a little bit earlier, woohoo! And there's a bullet point from this post that talks about Legacy raid tuning. Hopefully this means that certain encounters will be a bit easier to solo, not just BFA raids, but maybe earlier ones like Legion. I'm talking about Mythic Avatar or Kill Jaden or Agrimar. Legendary item recycling was another hot button topic right until the start of patch 9.1. Now that we're a few months into this patch and a lot of folks are swimming in Soul Ash, this might be more beneficial as a preparation thing for 9.2 if and when we've got to deal with the return of tier sets and bonuses and possibly shuffling our legendaries around again. We already got word of new travel forms and customizations with a recent blog post showing more of what's coming for Lightforged Draenei, Nightborn, and Void Elves. Allied races from Battle for Azeroth will be easier to unlock with the dungeon restrictions being lifted. There will be heirloom upgrades that'll make them useful from level 50 to 60, which means they'll be good in Torghast if nowhere else. The dressing room is getting a small update with linkable wardrobes that can more easily identify where to obtain appearances. Legendary memories from dungeons are now a guaranteed drop in case you're not using the other methods of obtaining them. And of course, there's class tuning that no one will ever be in agreement on. While vague, the team also mentioned in-game changes to content to reflect our shared values, better visibility into the impact of your in-game reports of harassment, and more serious penalties for people engaged in disruptive behavior. It's pretty much everything that we've been asking for since well before Shadowlands was released, and even then, there are numerous pain points like not having enough fun things to do in Torghast, or ignoring the twisting corridors, and the other things over like time gating, grindiness, and so on and so forth. And even with these positive changes, there are those out there who are canceling it out, pointing out the obvious that all of these and more should have been in from the very start, that at this point it is too little, too late, Blizzard. Now, we're never going to know exactly what happened behind closed doors. We gotta ask ourselves and never get the answer to, like, what did the team have to shift their focus away from during 2020 just to get Shadowlands to ship with a delay? Which of these many ideas could have been implemented sooner in the 905 or the 91, but wasn't in favor for something else? And even then, knowing this information wouldn't help. After all, these are just excuses. But we're also way past that now. And for the sake of my own mental health, I find it much more productive to just, let go of the emotional baggage of the past and look forward. Otherwise, I wouldn't be playing from a good state of mind and I'd be wasting my time feeling miserable. Hopefully, Blizzard is coming away the same way, looking forward with lessons learned. It's the self-inflicted burden of Blizzard, though, and I'm sorry to keep certain wounds fresh, to keep inventing new features every expansion that needs a lot of forethought and mindfulness for situations like alt-friendliness, catch-ups, and so on, and their track record has not been great. But as I look at what is being presented to me as is, I ask myself the age-old question, is this something that I want to play? Not everything in the patch interests me, obviously, but in general, absolutely. The one person I can't offend is me, so I'm going to use myself as a model of possible player behavior in patch 915. The biggest boon for me, easily, is the new flexibility with Covenant swapping. I look at these changes and I see myself at max renown by the time the patch goes live, meaning I can freely jump around the Covenants however I like. I've already completed each of the Covenant campaigns once on other alts, meaning my soulbinds will quickly be unlocked and I'm gonna have a nice healthy start no matter where I go or who I choose. I can already imagine myself switching to my main Covenant when I want to farm Anima because it's all upgraded and everything, and then switch to another Covenant to turn it in. It feels awkward and inconvenient, right? It's like, it'd be nice if Anima could be shared even when switching between Covenants, because right now it's not. It'd be even better if on top of that, Blizzard were to also lift the Anima cap now, and then I can go just farm it up. That way I won't have to when 915 hits. Anyway, I would definitely have for myself a new obsession, to restore all 4 Covenants on a single character, which I can kind of do now, but since I raid, I still want to have that flexibility. With all the Covenant Sanctums restored, this will give me a crap ton of transmog options between all 4 Covenants, unleashing even more chaos when I randomly roll my transmog. But I guess more reasonably, I would love that wood suit for the Night Fae, and I want to sport that while spewing my fan of shields, unless there's like some certain fight or encounter where I'd rather drop an Ashen Hollow. That'd be pretty hilarious. It's like me lighting myself on fire, or maybe I throw down a Blessing of the Seasons. No. Now I wonder, I'm sure someone out there already knows the answer, but what if I have mission tables available for each Covenant? Will I be able to technically run all of them just by constantly switching from one to the next? Whatever the case though, this opens up some stupid crazy potential for people who mostly play a single character. For the sake of appearances, it does still seem like you've got to play 4 characters, one for each armor type to get them all. So hey, have fun doing the Trial of Humility 4 times. Oh boy, it's gonna be so great. Performance-wise, there will be a challenge that I want to point out early on. Suddenly having all 4 Covenants available means having a pretty low-level conduit for your Covenant ability. That's gonna make the competitive raiders and dungeon people really excited, right? And already mentioned the awkwardness of reservoir anima not being shared across covenants. Solo islands are probably my other favorite thing coming in 9.15 so far, not because I'm going to definitely farm the crap out of it day one, but because it turns islands into bona fide evergreen content. It's just there now for you to romp around in. I'd enjoy them even more if they also remove the timer. After all, we're by ourselves and there's no pressure, right? But I'll take it as is too. Since I'm alone, I can just hop back in and it won't be a problem. But how about you folks? I mean, it's a lot to take in, but what do you think of this patch? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it not enough? And moving on, earlier this week, we're seeing more fallout from the Blizzard lawsuits, a move that was totally expected, but not very substantial. In an announcement from the Overwatch team, the McCree character is going to be renamed. To what? We don't know yet, but my guess is moving forward, we're gonna call him Bamf. Totally obvious name tag, I mean, he's wearing it, which by the way, it stands for Bunnies Are My Friend. But what's been making the rounds in social media isn't the news of the change, but the mixed reaction from fans. I mean, on the one hand, it's a win. It's one win, but it's a win. Not only is the legacy of the accused being wiped away, but in a new mandate, future characters will not be the namesake of developers. I'm gonna have a bit more on that later, but on the other hand, we have folks railing against the upcoming change because it's just a smokescreen to distract us from the real issues. It's virtue signaling. It changes nothing, or at the very least, it's just not enough. And you know what? They're right. It's not enough. You know what else though? No shit, it's not enough. In my observations, these folks don't mean to, but they're trying to downplay the change as if this post had a mission accomplished flag waving behind it. Like everyone's packing up and going home, sex discrimination, oh, it's over. When the Civil Rights Act passed, racism didn't just stop. When women got the right to vote, sex discrimination didn't just go away. But these and other milestones and the Blizzard lawsuit marked what we hope to look back on as the beginning, not the end of significant change. But I get it. I get the vibe coming from these folks who want a faster response, or in game speak, the instant gratification, the dopamine rush, and for the time gating to go away. But too bad. You thought waiting for Blizzard to respond is bad? Yeah, open a history book. We can take this small win and pick it up like a flag to wave as we push forward for a better ABK. You see what I did there? Or we can sit here on our chairs telling these workers that their efforts aren't good enough to satisfy us, like we're the ones being directly victimized here. I feel like it's important to make clear that there's a distinction between what the Overwatch and the WoW developers can do versus what they're demanding of Activision Blizzard's executive leadership. They weren't demanding that the McCree name be changed because that was in their power as the developer. What they want from the leadership is an end to mandatory arbitration, improved representation, pay transparency, and a third party to audit their HR, among other things. Changing a name is both a small and a big thing. It's big because it's branding, and that's kind of hard. It's big because it sends a message. It's small because it's only branding, and it's small because it only sends one message. But regardless of the impact, my opinion, it's a small but necessary step to help those who are most adversely affected to move on and heal. I also want to talk about this new mandate that in-game characters will no longer be named after real employees, because this is potentially a big deal than it seems. As stated, this is fine, but we also got to consider the world of Warcraft. It too was subject to some cleaning up thanks to Alex Cosby, and as mentioned earlier, there's going to be changes in 9.15 to reflect shared values. Maybe we'll see McCree change to meaningful choice. Yeah, I thought long and hard on that one. Sounds like going forward, the World of Warcraft is going to no longer include these in-game references to its employees, but I've also got to wonder if this is going to apply to everybody, including celebrities or notable players. I mean, they're people too, right? So my question to you folks is if this is important to you, or just you, we're even aware of some of these references. So share your thoughts on this or anything you've been listening to today, and that's the show. So some updates on some non-Warcraft stuff. I'm finally catching up on some Final Fantasy XIV. I'm on patch 5.3 if I'm not mistaken. I'm ready to take on another one of those big bads in pretty much the same manner as the one most previous. Now, I did learn, of course, that you have to complete raid content from the base game in order to progress through to the most current expansion. Ooh. Yes. Nice. I'll take that. All right. Get me up so I can die again. And it went pretty well, all things considered, so if I can somehow manage to find a group to do this thing at like 2 in the morning whenever I have free time, I will finally be able to finish the story and give a nice meaty update on my journey so far in another Project 14 episode. The coffee talks have been a lot of fun to do. One lesson that I've learned is that because it's more or less me talking with viewers and the voices in my head, it's probably not a good idea to run a gameplay trailer that people might not be watching because they're doing other things. Bigger topic though, and I want to definitely get some of your folks' input on this. What if I did Coffee with Soul only on YouTube? Like, I actually did this when I first started streaming, where I would jump on YouTube first for a kind of warm-up stream to get people's attention, and then I would immediately jump over to Twitch for all the gaming fun time goodness. Maybe I'll consider doing an experiment sometime soon to see how it goes, but I would love to get your input. Would that be too jarring? Do you not care? But whatever the case, if the 915 PTR drops next week, it's going to mark pretty much the end of downtime and a return to giving previews and feedback because, hey, even if I have my gripes against public testing, I said my piece, and I'm gonna still work with what we have. So I want to give a big thanks for joining me today alongside our awesome Twitch subscribers and to our valued patrons like newcomer Laura. Thank you for your contributions that will let me turn my air condition on momentarily. It's like super hot in here. But I'm looking forward to seeing your digital faces next week for some coffee and soul and whatever it is that we end up talking about. So take care, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.